Welcome back to Aim Small. I'm Gert, your slightly lunatic presenter, all the way from sunny South Africa. Sit back and relax. Welcome back, folks. So on the back of last week's video, where I looked at bent pallet skirts, one of the viewers had a very interesting question, and that's about, does bent skirt affect speed? Now there's a couple of theories regarding this. If the skirt is just slightly bent, like these, then the pressure of the actual regulated 110 bar, which this gun is set up to do, should actually open up that skirt quite easily. But how much air is wasted in the process? And then what happens if that skirt is severely damaged or severely flattened? Will it still reach the same speeds? Right, so today's exercise is quite easy. I've got my chronograph on front. I'm not going to test accuracy. I'm purely going to look at speed. Right, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot a controlled batch of pellets, 10 pellets. And these 10 pellets aren't weighed, they're straight out of the tin, all right? I just want to get a average speed on these pellets. And I also want to look at what is the standard deviation, the STD, not sexual transmitted disease, standard STD, deviation between these pellets. Then I'm going to shoot the slightly bent ones, exactly the same exercise. Look at what the difference is there. And then the last one, I'm going to shoot 10 shots with the severely bent skirts. And just to make sure that this is a scientific experiment, I'm going to repeat this with a high power 5.5 millimeter gun as well, my infamous Daystate Pulsar. Okay, so first up, sub 12 foot-pound. Let's see what the difference in speed is. And after that, I'm going to go over to the high power and see if there's the difference in speed, if there is any, is exaggerated, yes or no. Let's get into this. Right, 10 shots. Chrony is on. Gun is zeroed there at my pellet box. Shouldn't have any issues there. Let's see if it reads. Yes, I've got a solid reading there. Let's rip it. 10 shots. Right, the first shot there was a little bit low. I'm going to discount that one. I'm going to shoot another one. It's just the first pellet. I don't know if there was a little bit of red creep. Just going to shoot another one. I'll eliminate it when I do the averages. Ah, that looks a lot better. Okay, so I've got my 10 shots down there. Everything looks quite hunky-dory. Okay, now for the next one, I'm going to use the slightly bent skirts and do exactly the same. I probably should have weighed the pellets before I started, but this still gives us a great benchmark for the experiments going forward. 10 shots, slightly bent skirts. Okay, interesting. The bent skirt standard deviation is slightly worse off than the normal pellets, and they are shooting slightly slower. Let's see what the severely bent skirts are going to do to us. Now for the very severely bent skirts. Okay, that's interesting. I did notice a bigger difference in the speed variation, but I'll have to go and actually look at the figures itself, analyze it a little bit on the PC, and then I'll give you the summary of the sub 12 foot-pound and bent skirts in that regard. Again, some subtle changes in the standard deviation as well as maximum speed. But let's put all three of them side to side and see what the differences are. The good pellets also shows good consistency, except for that one low shot. If I go to the slightly bent ones, there's a little bit more variance in that, with one flyer quite fast, and then the badly bent pellets also has a badly bent graph. So if I take this one step further, and I put all three the shot strings next to each other, then the difference becomes quite apparent. The standard deviation increases with the quality of the skirts decreasing, and then the standard deviation also changes a bit. But I was expecting a big
difference between that. If I look at these standard deviations and these small differences, it shouldn't make that big a challenge for us shooting specifically at the shorter ranges. At the longer ranges, yes, it will have a massive influence.
Time to move on to slightly high power. So what I've got here is my Daystate Pulsar. Absolutely love this gun, so consistent. I've set it on high power. I'm going to shoot 18 grain pellets with this. I'm not going to mention who the manufacturer is of the pellets, but the pellets here are the actual pellets out of the tin. This is not me squashing pellets and making them look bad. This is an actual tin of pellets I received. Now, I didn't know what to do if I must make paperweights with this tin, but today I found a video where I can actually use them. 10 shots. These are the most perfect pellets that I could find in that whole batch. So I'm going to start my 10 shot grouping with those first 10 pellets. Let's see what the speed does. Right, even with those so-called pellets where the skirts were quite good, the results weren't that great. If I look at the standard deviation on that screen, not lekker. Right, let's load the slightly bent ones in.
Although this is a bad tin of pellets, it still gives us a great baseline to work off when we go over to the bent skirts.
I do think I need to show you guys the grouping I got with those slightly bent pellets out there in the front. Wow! Daystate Pulsar, yo beaut. Right.
The difference in speed is quite remarkable and also noticeable at this stage at 15 feet per second between the perfect skirts versus the slightly bent skirts. So immediately there's a drop in speed already, but the consistency is right there. The accuracy is right there, which is quite interesting to note. Alright, let's go over to the well-bent skirts.
Right, so these skirts are absolutely horrible. I'm just for interest's sake gonna see what the grouping is with them as well. But this is all about speed. Let's have a go. Right, very clear at the front of the target. Those seriously bent skirts were all over the place. And the speed was also horrific. Still enough air pressure in there. But yeah, they came out very slow. Very interesting.
Yep, I fell off the rig. But at least I got 5 decent shots in before there's a drop in the rig. And those 5 shots were already, again, about 15 feet per second slower than the slightly bent skirts, indicating that there is a loss of air while the gun is trying to open up the back of the pellet itself, the skirts, and bending it into the barrel itself, but it's not at 100%. And this is the first time that I'm seeing a massive accuracy shift as well with bent skirts. I did not see this in the previous video. Let's quickly look at all 3 different speeds next to each other. When we look at the graphs with the different speeds on, it is now apparent where the drop in speed occurs between the perfect skirts, the slightly bent and the badly bent skirts. But we can take it one step further and look at the average speed as well as the standard deviation to give us a better indication. So let me do a short conclusion and step out of this one. Shooting pellets with a slightly bent skirt will not affect your accuracy that much, but the higher the power, the bigger the effect, and also the slower your pellet will come out of the barrel. So for the guy shooting sub 12 foot-pounds, don't worry too much about a bent skirt unless you're shooting bench rest or serious competitions. But for plinking, don't throw away those bent skirts. Use them. You paid for them. Have a lekker day.
That's all, folks.